One, two, three, four. One, two, three, four. One, two, three.
Hello, hello. Here I am. Hey, everybody. I can't believe the chat was already going even before the live stream started. So cool. Thank you guys so much for being there. Here are the nerves. Let me get all the nerves shaken out, all the chills moving through my body. I don't know what it is, guys. I am always so nervous when it comes to these live streams starting, but I'm very happy to be here. First of all, let's get the tech out of the way. Can you guys hear me okay? Let me know if sound is good. A lot of people to say hello to. I see a lot of names that I know. Happy Monday, everyone. Happy Labor Day to those of you celebrating that. Hopefully taking some time off today. Seems like people liked hearing the old Brain Scratch song. Deep breath. Yeah, thank you, Crystal. Good reminder. I do occasionally get sound is good. Thank you, Super Strike 9. And Gerardo, thank you. Everyone, good. Sound is fine. Drink coffee. I don't know, Restless Nomad. That might actually work against me. I'm not much of a coffee drinker. I try to keep it down to only on the weekends. I did have one this morning, so maybe that's why I'm a little jittery here. Hey, everyone. Hey, Cloudy831. So here we are. Welcome to the 2018 LordanArts Q&A/chat/ whatever we want it to be. I seem to do these about once a year, so a little bit of a rare event. Typically, I don't do too many live streams because YouTube does this weird thing with where they place them in terms of finding them later that I'm not the biggest fan of. I wish they would just drop them in with all the regular videos. They've been flip-flopping on that. Sometimes they'll pop in on the regular videos. Sometimes they add this extra drop down at the top of my videos list where you have to say, I want to look for the live streams in particular. So for cases, I'm not the biggest fan of that mechanism because I want them to be easily accessible so that we could, spread awareness about those cases. Dusty Rusty Musty says, John, they say breathing into a brown paper bag is a good thing for nerves. I've got no brown paper bag, but this guy's helping me with my nerves a little bit. He's always off screen. I don't know if he just reminds me to try to enjoy things every now and then. Can sometimes get tough, obviously, with some of the topics that we talk about here, but happy Labor Day, everyone. And just want to give you guys kind of a quick update on the channel. We are over 1,000 videos. That is so crazy to me. We have just hit 65,000 subscribers. As of this morning, I took a look. We are at 11,935,369 total views. So within the next week or two, we're going to crack 12 million views. I'm just really amazed by that. Currently, we have over 200 episodes of Brain Scratch. We're coming up on 200 episodes also of Searchlight, which I'm sure many of you know is it's kind of my passion project. That's the one that I feel most passionate about. I really enjoy helping to raise exposure to those cases. I even enjoy some of the tough stuff, like talking to family members, either live on interviews or outside of it, following up with them, sometimes months, now getting into years after their episode has premiered. It's tough work, but it's honestly, I can't think of anything that's been more rewarding in my life. I really appreciate that the most. And 74 episodes of Case Cracked, which I'm also really enjoying, especially now that I'm able to focus on those cases and get those episodes done more regularly. So that's kind of just the 10,000 foot view of the channel at this point. I want to ask everyone where you're from, because I did see some chat at the start that was... It was pretty awesome. I think you guys are coming from all over the world at this case. So pop it in there. Let me know where you're from. I'm going to read some of these off. Hello, Patricia F. Allison Tatman. I know, 12 million views. It's going to happen very, very soon. And Sarah Turney is here. Sarah, hello. Thank you so much for coming on the channel, for sharing the story about Alyssa, for helping us all understand that, and also for all your participation. Hey... Someone just bought me a coffee. Hughes 153. A coffee a day keeps the Lordan away. Very cool. Thank you so much. But Sarah, yeah, I really appreciate the friendship that we've had over the past years. Oh, here we go. Okay, we're getting into the places. The Netherlands, Sacramento, California, Chicago, Argentina, Utah, New Jersey, Hamburg, Germany, New Bern, Tennessee, Lapeer, Michigan, USA, Iowa, Nova Scotia, Canada, Florida, unfortunately, says someone. I live in Africa, northern Wisconsin. What's up, Wisconsin? I get there every now and then. I really enjoy going there. Ohio. Kevin lives in Slovakia, but he's from Ireland. Heather Relander, becoming a good Twitter pal of mine, of course, in Minnesota. Croatia. What's up, Leo? Australia, Triple X, Luton, England. Hope I'm saying that right. Hey, it wouldn't be a LordanArts video if I didn't screw up something, right? North Branch, Minnesota. Where in Minnesota are you living? Asked Diane. I actually live in, I'd consider it the St. Paul area, but Twin Cities is where I spend most of my time. Love going to shows and concerts and restaurants out here. Virginia, St. Louis. I know. Someone saying, I saw Croatia? Yeah, Croatia. Restless Nomad, China. Anna's Planner, Denmark. Portland, Maine. Wow. I'm just amazed at this audience. You guys are from all over the place. Arleta, California. Poland, Miami, Scotland. Hey, Laura Smith. Christy's here. Christy Straciner, my associate producer. Happy you could make it, Christy. And she's noting also so many people from all over the world. It is really amazing. And that's one of the things that I love most about YouTube, is that it's able to facilitate us finding each other like this. I might not have, 6 or 10,000 people in a particular state that are watching a case, but we're seeing it from all over the world, that there's people out there with big hearts that care about these things. And that means a lot to me. Tenerife, Canary Islands. I hope that's right, MZ. Germany again. New York. I love New York. One of the places I really enjoy going to. It's just such an interesting mix of cultures. I was actually in Las Vegas this past weekend. I had the coolest Lyft driver conversation that I've ever had before. He was a guy that was in Afghanistan. He was there during the war efforts. He actually worked as a translator for our military. And essentially, he saw a lot of his friends that were doing the same work die. And after the war efforts were over, the U.S. helped bring him over here. And literally within a matter of weeks, the guy had his resident status, had a social security number, and is now living his American dream. So really, really cool story. We got Boston, we got England, we got Louisville, Kentucky, Modesto, California, Tampa. Wow, guys, it's amazing. Detroit. And we also have Kim Skubik here saying, hey, Christy, one of the highlights of CrimeCon for me, and I know I talk about CrimeCon all the time, but I have to tell you guys, that was like a weekend that changed my life. I have been to so many different conferences throughout my careers working in IT and entertainment technology. And you always hear about these conferences and you're like, yeah, be sure to go to the networking events. You never know what this can do for your career. None of those conferences ever did anything for my career. CrimeCon was just completely different. I made so many good connections, so many wonderful things happened in that time, in that short few days. But one of the awesome things was meeting Kim at CrimeCon. She's one of the first people to ever kind of recognize me and call me out and just be like, John Lordan. And that was a real big thrill for me. It's really cool to just have that feeling. It's like, wow, here's someone that knows me. And she was such a good Twitter bud of mine that I knew who she was right when I turned around. But it was so cool to finally meet her face to face and in person. So. All right, don't forget Greece. I won't forget Greece. UK, Wales. Wow. Amy says her husband is about to come from deployment. Yeah, and be sure to thank him for all of us. I was really moved by that, and I had never heard a story about the U.S. kind of taking care of people that have assisted in that way. I mean, they like got him into the country, got him hooked up, and my parents are immigrants, so it kind of means a lot to me. And they came at a much different time. I know that people nowadays trying to immigrate to the U.S., it's a whole different thing. So I was really happy to hear about that. And I believe it's Reading, England, but I don't know, it could be Reading, England, the way that's typed. Maybe there's Reading and there's Reading. All right, everyone, thank you so much. I'm just thrilled that all of you are here from around the world. It means so much to me. So speaking of CrimeCon and speaking of what this year has been like for me, there's been a shift in what has been going on. Obviously, with the channel, I really started focusing on doing the daily videos and everything. And then really it started about a year ago where I consider this kind of the year of collabs. Just all of a sudden, it got to the point where there was enough people that wanted me to help their projects in some way or do some type of crossover or something like that. So I just wanted to talk about some of those collabs. Some of them you know about, some of them you probably don't know about because they're not out quite yet. The first one I want to talk about is Wraithworks. I know I've talked about this on the channel a few times. I was contacted by an author, I think it was about a year ago at this point, and he wanted to write a book about YouTubers, kind of a mystery about people that do what I do, and he wanted me to work as a story consultant on that. His name is Frederick Crook. We struck up a bit of a good friendship while we were working on it. I read early drafts, gave him feedback, and he worked that into the book. The book is now out. It's now published. However, there's another aspect to that, and that is an audio book. So Frederick was sure to collaborate with me because I told him I really wouldn't mind doing an audio book, and I think that some of you out there wouldn't mind hanging out with me for an additional 5 or 6 hours while I'm kind of reading you a story, particularly a story that I helped in terms of the creation of. So I literally finished recording on the audiobook last week. Last month was just crazy between that and the launch of one of my favorite collaborations, which we'll get to. But the audio is recorded. I have a little more editing to do on it. Then it's going to be kicked in for approval. Frederick's going to go through his approval process, and then it will be available for purchase. I will put a link to it directly on LordanArts.com. So if you guys want to help support the book, I will be getting a cut of the sales of the audiobook because I basically produced all the audio on it. It helps support me, support the channel, and keep me here. It's just another way that you guys might be able to support the channel. So, and know that I really enjoyed it. One of the things I used to do when I lived in Southern California was I was kind of in this troupe of actors that would do scripted readings, basically so that writers or directors could kind of hear it out loud. And we would invite audiences and we'd get all kinds of people to, come and listen to these scripted readings. But I did it regularly. It's something I really enjoyed, and I kind of wanted to bring that back a little bit. And producing this audiobook really helped do that. So thank you, Frederick, for allowing me to do that as well. Jim Nething just signed the petition, #Justice for Alyssa. And yeah, definitely, if you guys are interested in Alyssa's case and in helping Sarah with that, please do the same. Please sign that petition. I added the link to it in the video interview with Sarah. I didn't know about it when we were talking to each other, unfortunately, or I would have mentioned it in the video, but you can still go to the video, go to the description box, find a link for that, and sign that petition. So that was kind of the start of what I consider the year of collabs. Then later last year was the Elisa Lam documentary. This was a Kickstarter project where two filmmakers, one that I was already friendly with, he runs a website called The Ghost Diaries. We're going to look into the Elisa Lam case. They wanted me to come back out to LA to do some shooting on that, to do an interview on that. It's a really, really good interview. It's with a body language expert. I can't tell you guys the conclusions we come to, but I can tell you, if nothing else comes out of that documentary, but them releasing that interview, I will be more than happy with it. It will be more than worth your time. That documentary is still in production. They're still finding new information, adding to it. They tell me that it should be coming out at some point in 2019. So keep your eyes open for the Elisa Lam documentary. Of course, I did also pop up on Investigation Discovery with the Elisa Lam story that they did. They featured me and Kendall Ray for a brief moment in that. That was kind of another highlight, very interesting collab. And recently, just a couple weeks ago, I was contacted by another YouTube channel that I like named Curiosity, and Gary J there, and he's working on a documentary about young men dying in water sources. You know, here in the US, we have our smiley face killer theory that's kind of wrapped up with that. In the UK, they have the canal pusher or the pusher theory that's kind of wrapped up in that also. He just wanted me to give my insight, do a virtual interview for him. I've sent it in. He's got it. So it's going to be featured in that documentary. I don't know when that documentary is going to be released, but he says it will be available, I believe, on Amazon. So I'm really excited about that one. Of course, I had two appearances on Crawlspace, one of them live at CrimeCon with Lance and Tim, and then the most recent one where we talked again about the smiley face killer theory. This past weekend, you might have seen that a music video was released by a YouTube channel called Grumpy Retro Gamers. And it was a music video about retro gaming. And I really liked that project for a few reasons. I'm a big gamer. It's one of the ways that I unwind when I'm dealing with this kind of stuff. And I like retro gaming. I actually have a full arcade cabinet in a room upstairs. I've got some superhero artwork all around there. I've got a dartboard up there. But my retro gaming cabinet is just loaded. I was literally playing Pac-Man on it last night. I'm a really big retro gamer, so that was a bit of a fun project. I know it's a little weird seeing me do something like that nowadays with the type of content that I do. It's a little more comedic, but for those of you that are pre-Brain Scratch, that remember the Geek and Dorks channel, pretty par for the course. I used to have all kinds of goofy songs and music spoofs and stuff like that I was doing. And I was really happy to help out an up-and-coming YouTuber. I've had some big bumps happen in my subscribership thanks to shout-outs, particularly from Kendall Ray, particularly from Danielle Hallen, and then recently with this My Favorite Murder mention, I've noticed we've had a really good month when it comes to subscribers as well. I know how helpful that can be to up-and-coming channels, so I wanted to help out Grumpy Retro Gamers because I like their stuff. So I was sure to participate in that music video. Upcoming collabs, I've been talking to Mike Morford, also known as Morph, of the Criminology and the Murder in My Family podcasts. We're definitely figuring out some collaboration between us. Also, we've got more coming up with Sheila Wysocki, including some type of big collaboration specifically for CrimeCon 2019 in New Orleans. So if you want to meet Sheila, meet myself, meet Danielle, CrimeCon 2019 in New Orleans is your absolute best bet for being able to meet all three of us. Also outside of that, Gray Hughes. I know many of you out there are Gray Hughes fans. In terms of YouTubers, I think Danielle might be the one that I'm closest to, but Gray is a close second. He's the type of YouTuber that, sometimes we get on the phone just to talk about a particular case or to trade war stories about what's going on with YouTube. Quickly becoming a really good friend of mine. And I do see some type of collaboration, maybe a podcast, But definitely some type of case collaboration coming up soon with him. Of course, one of the big collabs was the crossover investigation on the Noah Davis missing person case that I did with Danielle Hallen. One of the toughest cases for so many different reasons that I've ever looked into. And I'm really glad that Danielle was kind of there to help me with that. And then, of course, mentioning Danielle, this past weekend we had the premiere of Crime After Crime, the true premiere of it. Episode 1, The Most Bizarre Weapon. So I want to start with that. Let me know, guys. Did you enjoy Crime After Crime? What did you think about it? We actually have someone that sent a link to subscribe to the new series Crime After Crime with John and Danielle Hallen. I'm going to show that just to make sure the link shows up. There we go. Thank you, Audax Spiritus. Hope I'm saying that right. So what'd you guys think? Oh, well, Chris Marie, another good Twitter pal of mine, thinks that Pac-Man will always be the best. It's funny because in terms of arcade gaming, I was really more of like the Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat era, where there was still arcades kind of around that can do that, or you'd go to Round Table Pizza and play them there. But I love Pac-Man. It's so simple and fun, and you can just kind of disappear. Your brain can just disappear into it. Kim Stubik says she will be at CrimeCon. I'm really happy she'll be there again. So here we go. Loved Crime After Crime, says Lauren Walker. Sarah S. loved it. Tina Vega loved it. Autumn Falls 89, it was great. Orange Everything, great fun. Sarah C. loved it and voted for me. Thank you, because I saw the Twitter poll, and believe it or not, I actually voted for Danielle on the Twitter poll. And then it shows you the results, and I saw I was getting my butt handed to me. Danielle might be running out with this one. We'll see. Emma says she watched it. It was good. Sharon says she loved it. Bridget Jamie Cooper loves me, I suppose, in it. Thank you so much. Katie Alosi loved Crime After Crime. Super Strike 9, Street Fighter 2 rules. Yes, it's still one of my favorite go-tos. Does Cyndi Lauper sing the theme song, says Restless Nomad. It's pretty funny. I was having dinner with my wife in Las Vegas this weekend, and, of course, we were thinking about the premiere, and it was literally the night before the release of the show, and what did we hear? We did hear Time After Time, and my wife saw, oh, do you hear that? And I didn't even put it together. I was like, I don't know. I think of it as something different now because we've been talking about it so long and putting it together. Loved seeing you laughing on Crime After Crime. I know that's really part of the reason why we wanted to do that particular format. And I know there are a few people, not a whole lot that I could see from the comments on the video, but there are some people that are like worried that the tone of it is going to be too light, or that it's somehow going to kind of undermine the work that Danielle and I do. I don't see that at all. I mean, if you think that by watching my channel that is a total representation of what I'm like as a person, it's just not true. There are many more aspects to both Danielle and myself as people, and that's why we really wanted to kind of section this off into its own world, give it its own channel, give it its own opportunity to grow in its own way. We talked about this at length, about the possibility that you could have a fan of mine on the LordanArts channel that doesn't like Crime After Crime because it's going to be a little bit more lighthearted in nature. However, keep in mind that it's topic-based, so it really depends on the topics. If we do get to the point of talking about the most drastic, maybe the most devastating murder weapon or something along those lines, those conversations are going to be quite a bit different than the most bizarre weapon, which just the nature of that topic is going to pull us into a lighter episode. So I do think you're going to see some oscillation with the emotional tone of Crime After Crime. That's part of what I think is going to make it interesting. But Danielle and I were really working on something that we wanted to do together that we thought would be unique. And one of the comments I appreciate most is hearing about our chemistry, that there's so many of you out there that are saying, wow, the chemistry between you two is so good and it works really well. I'm happy about that. And it just goes to show how much time we've actually been spending talking to each other since CrimeCon. First of all, CrimeCon, we spent so much time together. We were literally sitting at the table right next to each other. But even outside of that, we were going to lunches together, to dinner together. Danielle and her husband are just such great people. They also have that spark between the two of them. It's just really infectious. When people are that in love and you see it and it's that transparent, it just makes you feel good to be around. So even outside of us just chatting at the table or, signing autographs and doing all that stuff, we really hung out and we really got to know each other at a bit of a deeper level. And that was the start for everything that is now Crime After Crime. But a big tone about it was that, or a big, a big thing about the tone was being sure that it was going to be something that we wanted to do. Because if it was just the same as what we were already doing on our channels, we're already doing that on our channels. So what is going to kind of lead us to want to then have some kind of crossover where we're just going to do the same things that we do on our channels, but now we're just doing it together? And maybe that's a good thing that happened with the Noah Davis case and us looking into that and trying that as a crossover first. I think that also set the tone for us in terms of what type of collaboration we would like going forward. So... and Christy Groves, good friend of the LordanArts channel. Not sure she's going to listen to Crime After Crime, but still loves John. Like I said, I do think that there are people that are going to go that way. But I also know there's people that go the other way because I also hear and see comments from people about, I love your channel, but I can't do these dark down stories over and over and over and over. It starts to wear on them. And that's part of the reason why I made Case Cracked, which kind of lifts those stories a little bit, but they're still serious. In a lot of Case Cracks, we still have victims. So this is it's a whole different thing. I imagine it's going to go both directions. Some people will love it, some people won't. But the good thing is it's not taking anything away from either Danielle or my channel and our original stuff that we do there. That's not going anywhere. Crime After Crime isn't taking any time away from those shows. And that was a lot of fun in terms of the Wasabi Pants thing. I did not expect her to say Wasabi Pants. I saw the best hashtags all weekend over hot dog tongs and Wasabi Pants. I even saw someone that lived close by to the J Mart that said they were going to try to get me the hot dog tongs, but we'll see how that goes. So while we're talking about this, and I know I said this is an open Q&A. I promise we're going to get there very soon. I know this feels like it's more me asking questions, but I do want to ask you guys about the LordanArts channel. Do you have any comments or suggestions about the LordanArts channel? Any collaborations you'd like to see me do? And I swear, that's my last question before we get to your open Q&A. So let me just give some time for comments to come through on that. I love food pants. I couldn't believe it. And I couldn't believe that both of our stories had this element of food worked into it. It's crazy. Amara Smith says, I'm just annoyed at YouTube that I didn't get notification. I have Bell on, so I didn't know. I have heard more horror stories about the notification bell and that feature not working very good. The best thing I could say for that is just be sure to follow me on Twitter, because everything that gets released, there's a notice about it automatically that kicks over on Twitter. When I have live events coming up, I talk about it. So yeah, Twitter is a good way to back that up. Cassie, I believe it was Copeland, wants to know what my opinion of Nancy Grace is. I struggle a little bit with her presentation. I understand that there are things to be upset about when you're talking about these cases, but it kind of wears on me, the anger that she kind of brings into those conversations. And even with her podcast, she just beats up on that guy that does her research. And I really don't like that aspect of it. The other interesting thing is, I won't say who, but I talked to several people about her at CrimeCon, and a lot of people just had really bad experiences with her directly. I appreciate what she's doing. I totally appreciate her career path and that she is trying to raise exposure to those cases. Her theories sometimes for me are a little too hard. She kind of decides what direction she's going in, and she really sticks with that direction for her understanding of the story. And I don't know that's always the best. So I struggle with her a bit. But you can't deny her success. You can't deny the work that she's done in terms of raising exposure to these cases. So I totally get that. Collab with Kendall Ray. Possibly. I'll definitely put that in the air. Kendall and we haven't had the time together that Danielle and I have. Kendall and I have basically only really spoken to each other kind of through social media and in Twitter. She'll respond to my direct messages, and she's pretty quick about it. So something for us to talk about for sure. Rachel Eileen says YouTube randomly unsubscribes her from my channel all the time. Yeah, I know it. Rob Dyke collab, says Emily Reed. That's an interesting one. I don't know if Rob would necessarily appreciate the approach that I bring to the cases, but it is an interesting thought. When I came into this space, of course, I was watching Rob's work. I kind of was looking at that and deciding for myself which way could I go with telling these types of stories. He does the creepy music. He has a really good artist, or several probably, that work on his videos, and I kind of appreciate it from an artistic aspect. But collaborating on a case together, I've never felt really strongly about his research in terms of looking into cases. I feel like he's a great storyteller with really good partners that work with him on that. And I know Kaylee Elise, who is a really good researcher, and I know she did, I don't know if she still does, I know she used to do work for him. But it's interesting. I'd really have to think about that and figure out the right way for us to work together. Ludi Price, hey John, would you mind consider doing a collab with peeps like Morph or Generation Y or the Crawl Space Missing Maura Murray guys? Tim and Lance actually spoke to me about coming on to an episode of Missing Maura Murray, so that might happen. Morph, we're like literally in talks, like literally over this past weekend on some collaboration efforts. So I do think that is going to happen. Generation Y, possibly. I don't have anything really laid out with them as directly as the other people, but thank you so much for the donation. I really appreciate that as well. Definitely try to collaborate with Josh Lador, maybe guest on the Mile Higher podcast. It's interesting because I see the work that they're doing, and I do feel like that is something that I used to do on Brain Scratch. I don't feel like I'm in that space nearly as much anymore. It doesn't mean that I can't appreciate those types of stories or, research up on a particular topic for doing something like that. But I did feel this shift that has kind of happened with the channel where, once you're bringing on family members of people that have been murdered and you're interviewing them, there's something about the stories about aliens and ghosts that just doesn't feel quite the same as it used to for me. I've looked into so many of those cases. I've been disappointed with them so many times that it's kind of broken my heart a little bit, because in my personal life, I love consuming media like that. I still watch Ghost Adventures. I just watched Demon House. Thank you, Christy, for letting me know that it was on Amazon Prime, which was, the house that Zach Baggins bought, and is a whole documentary about that particular house. Really, really enjoyed that. I've been watching a lot of the Dead Files lately, which is just a really fun format, and also kind of scratches that itch for me of the researcher aspect, because they have the private investigator that's, doing his research, or the former detective that's doing his research on the areas as well. So there is something about me in terms of an entertainment source where I enjoy that type of content. But when it comes to the channel now, I feel like trying to help people more. I feel like focusing on that aspect is more important to me than telling a good ghost story or something like that. And honestly, that's part of why I hit that wall on last week's episode, was because it got to the point in the research where I was like, who is this helping? And it doesn't feel like it's helping anybody. And if it's not, then what the hell am I doing? Am I just putting this out because I just need a video for Friday? It didn't feel right. So I definitely get that. Let's see here. what made you start getting into crime videos? Asks Lindsay Aaron. The main thing was kind of in that same aspect, just being able to help people. But it started with this open-ended question with the Elisa Lam case, which was just, there's so many ghost stories about this case. Is there a real mystery to this? Or, my first episode, I thought maybe the whole thing was a hoax. Maybe it was like the Blair Witch Project 2.0 in terms of Hollywood marketing or something along those lines. The investigation into that case really moved me towards caring about cases at a different level, because I peeled back all those ghost stories, worked through them literally one by one, and came to this pretty tragic understanding. And even to this day, I don't know. I can't give you guys a real good answer in terms of, do I think that she was harmed? Do I think that her life was ended? Or do I think that she went through some type of mental break and that's what led to her ending her own life? I still, to this day, do not have a clear answer, but I feel like it's clear that is the answer, that it's not the ghost of Richard Ramirez, who apparently wasn't dead at the time she was there. That it was none of these ghost stories that was wrapped around that. So just looking into that very first brain scratch case had this natural path of leading me towards trying to seek the truth in these cases. And then honestly, when someone like Sarah Turney reaches out to me and she's like, hey, my sister's been missing. I mean, there was a shift that happened around that. There was a shift that happened around the Brandon Lawson case, because it was the first time I was speaking to family members that were affected by something like that. It was nerve-wracking. It was terrifying. I'm a person that doesn't even like being on the phone, like even with family members and stuff. I don't like the phone. I would rather video chat with someone, honestly, than be on the phone. There's just something I've never liked about being on the phone. But all of a sudden I was in this spot where it was like, I had to make these phone calls to have these tough conversations with people. And through those tough conversations, I became to appreciate just being someone that would listen to them, would try to help them with what they were going through. Jim Nething, thank you so much for the donation. I really, really appreciate that. And more than the donation, I appreciate all your support of both mine and Danielle's work, and hanging out with you on Twitter and stuff. Thank you. Thank you so much. So it's been this path that I feel like I've been on, and it has led me to the point now where someone, go ahead, make my day, is literally sending me aliens and ghost images. I still love those stories, guys. And I do think every now and then one of those stories is going to pop up here and there as I find one that is really compelling. The problem I've hit now is I've kind of gone through the more popular of the alien stories and the most popular of the ghost stories. And in terms of there being really compelling new content in those areas, it seems like it's getting tougher and tougher, because our expectation for evidence from things like that has raised. I mean, we're at a point now where everyone has a cell phone. Everyone has a camera on their cell phone. They can record video. They could take pictures. So ghost stories, like the most compelling ones I've seen, are like from the 60s, alien stories, 60s, 70s. For modern ghost and alien stories, it's just the expectation is at a different place for me personally. I want to see some video evidence, or I need a really good, compelling reason why that's a good story to retell someone. Sarah Turney was just noting that I've also been a really good support for her via email. And thank you so much, Sarah. And that's a whole aspect that you guys really don't see a lot of. Is it's one thing to bring someone on the channel and to do an interview with them, and sometimes that is all the contact that we have. But in a lot of the cases, it's not. In a lot of the cases, the family members are staying up to date with me, sending me, hey, we've got a new GoFundMe open. We need help promoting it. But even outside of that, just keeping me up to date on cases happens a lot. True Crime Guy is here. Is that you, Morph? Looks like a little picture of you. What is the hardest case you've ever had to work on? And how is the transition to podcast so far? The hardest case, my go-to on that is the Elisa Lam case, but I've had some tougher moments. the case of Lauren Agee really bothers me, because you have so many people that are on the scene there, and it just takes one person to tell the truth about what happened in that case, and a lot of people would be put at ease, and we're not really seeing that. Let me just give a shout out. Amara Smith, thank you so much. Really appreciate the donation. Top Fives, actually, they used me, I think, in a little clip of one of their videos. So yeah, I do check them out. And Kia, I hope I'm saying that right. Kia STEM, thank you for the donation. One of my favorite people to watch. What would your best advice be for someone that is thinking about starting down the road of a crime-centered channel? Let me finish Morphs first, and then I'll get to that. Transition to podcast. Really interesting because it's not like YouTube where there's just one place and you just put up your video and it's good to go. There's all these different channels. There's all these different feeds to worry about. You know, iTunes for some reason can take up to 24 hours before the new episode will publish there. So setting the expectation with your audience is a whole different thing. That's probably been the most challenging thing. And knowing, where do I register this podcast with everyone? Back to Kia's question, to get started on a crime-centered channel is literally just to jump in and do it. Sarah, you really didn't have to do that. Sarah with a big donation, and I saw that LordanArts mug that you bought as well. Thank you. Thank you so much for doing that. Kia, the main thing to do is to make sure your heart's in the right place about the content that you want to present. It could start with just one case that you just dive into, or maybe just a few videos that you want to do. But it's really just to get started and to make it consistent. That's probably the best advice that I have to give anyone about starting anything in terms of YouTube or podcasting or whatever. You're building an expectation with your audience, so you want to be sure that you're meeting that expectation. And if that is, you have to be realistic with yourself. If you're working a full-time job and you have a family that you want to spend time with and care about, maybe that is just a video every 2 weeks or something along those lines. You can always ramp it up as you get better, as you learn things about how to produce, as you learn shortcuts about how to edit and do all that kind of stuff. You can always step it up later, but rolling it back the other direction is difficult. Which I kind of just went through in terms of going from 5 shows down to 3. But thankfully, so many of you out there are so supportive, it's been actually relatively easy. And now I'm seeing the benefits of it just in terms of having free time for all these collaborations. And that's kind of where I'm at with my personal development with my channel is it's not enough to do the 5 shows a week. I want to do bigger, different types of projects and be able to handle those, like an audiobook, like participating in a documentary, things like that. And when you're working as hard as you are to do 5 shows a week, you can't cut out the time to do those without really mashing up the expectations that you've set with your audience. So make it consistent, find that one that you really care about, and present that case and go from there. And don't worry so much about the tech stuff. Just know that you will get better with it. And presenting. A lot of people just, when it comes to just speaking in front of a camera and stuff, it takes some getting used to. The more practice that you can do, the better. And once again, that leads back to the big second tip. Make it consistent and do it often enough so that you're really developing. BKK with a $5 donation. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Super Strike 9 saying consistency is key. Yes, absolutely. Keep in mind, guys, I was doing YouTube for, I think, close to 2 years before Brain Scratch really hit. I was basically doing it for an audience of no one. I mean, it was literally, I knew that I had to commit to it. I knew that I had to set up that expectation just with myself, that it wasn't about seeing money as success or even seeing subscribers as success. I had to get used to loving the work. And then when I got used to loving the work, then it was finding the right product, which is what happened with Brain Scratch, and then recognizing that and going with it. And that's another major piece, is when you find something that works for you and your audience wants to see you do that, look at that, lock onto it, and move forward from there. True Crime Guy, big $10 donation. Thank you so much. Love your channel, John. Keep up the great work, and good luck with the podcast. If that is you, I think that is you, Morph. I'm pretty sure it's you. I wish you would have told me in there. Maybe you said it up above. I have to thank Morph because he really helped me in terms of the back end of the podcast, getting it submitted in time for it to be approved by Apple and all that kind of stuff. So I'm really looking forward to collaborating with Morph, and you guys will see that for sure in the future. I literally have a message from him sitting in my Twitter DM right now that I haven't even been able to get to yet. What do you think UK and US police could learn from each other, says Dottie Meadow Sweet. Wow. That could be, I mean, I could probably do an hour just on that on its own. There are things I really appreciate about the UK. I don't think having cameras in public places is necessarily the worst thing in the world. I like that they have people that are actually watching those cameras and trying to head off crime that's going on in their streets. The biggest problem I have in terms of U.S. policing is that it is so wildly inconsistent. And I can tell you guys this after speaking to numerous families in numerous states in this country. The expectations of even what happens during a missing person report being filed, completely different from one agency to the next. And I understand that there has to be some differences regionalized for certain areas. I mean, if you have a sheriff's department of 6 people that is covering a certain amount of space, that's going to be a bit of a different operation as opposed to a staff of 50 in a metropolitan area. But I really wish that there was some type of overriding architecture for the best ideas to float up to and for a set of standards to kind of be set that maybe do apply universally. Like, a missing persons case, we shouldn't see all the problems that we do in terms of people hearing that story about, well, I couldn't file it because they said it was within 24 hours or 48 hours, depending on where you are. And then you go to other places and they're like, no, there's no rule about that. That needs to be leveled out just at like a national level. And I think someone like NamUs is actually going to help do that. They're trying to get laws implemented so that people that work in police forces have to report things into NamUs. And I think that's a step in the right direction, but I'd really like to see that whole process just smoothed out. And that is just one very small aspect of the type of unification I'm talking about here. This country is dealing with a lot of problems in terms of perception, but also in terms of what's really happening out on those streets. Now we have cameras in everyone's pocket, so we're seeing a lot of different things. I think that we're on the right road because of that type of exposure to seeing the changes happen. But of course, for someone like me, they're not happening fast enough. Ant Red B with a big $14.99 donation. Thank you so much. 666 Black Carbon with a donation. Salute to you, John, for the work you do. Thank you. Really appreciate that. And from Sue M. Gable, all I can do. Sue, that's one of my favorite catchphrases, because if there was more I could do for any of these cases, I literally sign emails, particularly to family members, all my best, because I want them to know I am literally trying to do all my best that I can with these cases. Good old friend of the channel, Cyanide77. Hey, John, lovely surprise seeing you live. How do you feel about Professor Horan's Zodiac Killer hoax theory? I'm not familiar with that one, Cyanide. I'm going to have to look into it. I have to tell you, I find it interesting that I see so many articles so often about, we now know who the Zodiac Killer is, or, we now know who DB Cooper is. And I'm just, time and time again, I look into it and they're talking about the same few people that have been talked about in the past over and over. I'm really hoping that this trend we're seeing with familial DNA matching is going to answer those cases and just give us some definitive answers there. Fingers crossed for that one. Adam Bauman with a $9.99 donation. Thank you so much, Adam. Jay Case, how are your cats? And which hairstyle of yours do you like the most? You're my favorite geek by far. I enjoy your work. You're very bright. Thank you. Thank you, Jay Case. I appreciate that. My hairstyle is a matter of, I like it when it's kind of spiky, kind of like it is now, but I like it to grow out, and I do just kind of change it as it goes. I don't think I have one in particular. I like it when it takes 5 minutes. I think that's my, my favorite thing. Like where it's at right now, throw a little gel in it, good to go. When it gets too long, it starts taking me way much longer, and I got to pull out all kinds of, the hair dryer and all kinds of other wacky stuff. Yeah, simpler is better for me. Symbios Modeste, hope I'm saying that right, with a big donation as well. I was a police officer here in London, and your channel almost made me go down the path of missing persons. Things aren't as well organized down here. A lot had changed, so I left the job. Just want to say thank you, Lorden. Thank you for the insight on that. And there is something I do have to say about the difference that you touch on there. The media that I see about UK policing is way better than the media I typically see about US policing. I don't know if they spend more time or spend more money on having public information officers or media relation officers. It seems like that's the case to me. Here in the US, I think that there should be a requirement that if you're a police force of, I don't know, some number, maybe if you're a police force of more than 10 people, you have to have one person responsible for media and public relations. Because in some of these cases that I look into, it's obvious that either the departments don't have people that are doing that, or for some reason they're not getting the information out to the public that can really help with some of these cases. And that's the thing that kind of frustrates me the most. I think these cases deserve the attention. Scar says, this is awesome. Do live more often. Let me tell you guys, I've kind of seen super chats here and there, but I didn't even think that I would be getting tipped while I'm doing this. Thank you guys so much. That was completely unexpected. And it really means a lot to me that you guys are doing that. I really, really appreciate that. Let's see. Stoned Ape, you got that police detective haircut. Women love that. Well, if I was really going to go for the police detective thing, this would go away, or I would put it up here, upside down. Let's see. Restless Nomad, what is your research process? The main thing for researching any of these cases is get used to reading the same thing time and time again, but stay aware enough so that you notice the difference. When it comes to some missing persons cases, I will literally hit Google. I will bring up every single result. I'll open it in a new tab and I'll go piece by piece, one at a time through every single article. And I'll be like, okay, well, this is an article that's a copy of that one. I can close that out. Here's a different point from what we've learned in the previous articles. So I highlight that. Keep in mind that while I'm doing my research, I'm actually getting ready to present it to you guys. So that's part kind of built into my process as well. The Wayback Machine really helps, particularly when I'm looking into a case and I'm finding a lot of links that are no longer active. So I'll be sure to hit the Wayback Machine to get those links so I can recall that information. And of course, if there is any direct contact that happens leading up to me covering a case, that's happening more often now, where a family member will reach out to me. There is pre-interviews that I do in some of those cases where I just send them a bunch of questions via email, or sometimes we even get on the phone, and then I present the information to you guys after I've spoken to that person. I'll do whatever it takes, but I see errors with that method, because when you're speaking to a family member in some of these cases, their perceptions are going to come across very strong, where if you look into the media first, of course, you're getting another perspective, but it's the media's perspective. So it's not going to have, pre-conclusions kind of baked into it. I think I'm pretty good about recognizing that when I do speak to people before I actually bring them onto the channel or something like that. There was... oh man, I can't recall the name off the top of my head, but there's a case I literally just covered a week or two ago. And I wanted to cover what the mother had told me in terms of the theory, but I wanted to make sure that you guys knew that it was indeed a theory. And I feel terrible that his name is just eluding me right now. It gets really tough because, first of all, I'm pretty bad with names as it is. But even outside of that, when you've looked into literally hundreds of cases, as you have at this point, the name recall thing is just, I don't know. It breaks my heart a little bit sometimes when that happens. The Haunted Broadcast says, that's the same way I research. The more info, the better. Yes. And there's a commitment that you have to make to learning about that story. And the price you pay for that commitment is you're going to read the same information over and over and over. But you have to know that you are willing to do that so that you can find the differences and bring those forward. Oh, let's see here. It looks like a lot of you are talking about talking to Sarah Turney about getting more signatures on that petition. Please, please do. Please, please do. I do think that it is worth an effort. If there is ever a trial that's going to happen in Alyssa Turney's case, now is the time for it, regardless of if they think they can win it or not, or if they think that they might, hit double jeopardy and not be able to try it again. I don't know. I think it's time to try it. I don't know how much longer, Michael is going to be around. And it's that case, there's a lot that really breaks my heart about that case. Just the breakdown in families kind of, hits me a little bit personally. I really don't have the best relationship with my father as well. So I think I kind of, I sympathize with Sarah a bit on that. Oh, Amara Smith. This is Inga, a good Twitter friend of mine also. Chris Watts case thoughts. I'm not familiar enough with it to speak about that one right now, unfortunately. That's another thing that's kind of hard about putting yourself in this realm is there is an expectation that comes from a lot of people that you're keeping up to date with all the latest on, a lot of different crime theories and stuff like that. And it's a little different than that because I'm researching particular cases to present to you guys. And then I keep up to date on all the previous cases. So that's quite a bit different than, I don't have Google News alerts set up for every current crime that's going on. It would probably drive me crazy because a lot of the stuff that I see that happens in current media would never get to the point of being a brain scratch. Things sometimes get solved in a matter of weeks. I've honestly had a couple times where there would be a missing persons case that I want to look into, and I start looking into it, but it's really fresh. And within 2 or 3 weeks, it gets solved. And usually the person's found, thankfully. But in terms of my preparing for that and presenting it, all of a sudden all that goes out the window because the case has actually been cracked. It's been solved. Do I need an app to listen to Crime After Crime? Just Curious asks. You typically need some kind of app, but we have the version that's on YouTube. So you can always just play that version. My wife was actually playing that version, but she just kept the cover to her cell phone closed. So she was listening to it like a podcast. It's literally the exact same. Almost the exact same. The audio is a little better on Danielle's end if you listen to the true podcast version because it's recorded locally. The video version is it's over VoIP, so her audio takes a little bit of a hit on the video version. But the benefit of the video version is the video that we drop in. And I don't know if it's always going to happen, but in particular for the first episode, there's some pretty good video, especially around the whole hot dog tongs incident. So I really wanted to share that with all of you guys there. Oh, let's see. Shauna Ray. Yes, I have bumped into Shauna Ray, Nikki. I literally watched a video of hers. I heard a lot of you talking about her. I like that she has a little bit of the same kind of experience that I did getting into this. She's in the whole acting arena, and now she's kind of getting into true crime stories as well. Left her a comment. She replied to it. She was really happy to see that I was there. Maybe at some point, maybe some type of collaboration happening there. I could see that. J Swan Kilo J. Hey, I know you. John Lordan is the greatest of all time. Case closed. End of discussion. I really appreciate that, man. Thank you. Thank you so much for the awesome comment and the donation. Patricia Woolard, thanks for the great videos and all your hard work. I have to thank you guys. I couldn't do it without you guys. I could do videos. I proved that to myself. But in terms of the more meaningful content, the things that have moved me, this is really where I feel like I'm supposed to be, and I'm thankful that you guys are there with me. True Crime Guy, will you have a Twitter handle for Crime After Crime? I don't know at this point, because one of the things that we're trying to manage with it is the social media aspect of it. I don't like leaving people hanging, and I'm barely keeping up with my own social media. Well, between social media, YouTube comments, and personal email, I'm literally swimming in it. So the thought of even having a second Twitter account, I don't know. It might come in the future, but right now, I'm not quite feeling it. I think we have to see how successful the podcast is, and does it warrant its own. Right now, it's a collaboration project. It's between Danielle and myself. If someone wants to speak to us directly, we're pretty easy to get a hold of. I don't know. Maybe at some point we have some type of production team that could help us with that. Possibly. Vanessa Dearman with a big donation. Thank you. Just saying hello, and I am a super fan. Thank you so much, Vanessa. I really, really appreciate that. And that's a very cute picture that you have there as well. Darrow S., will you be doing more lives? It's something that Gray Hughes actually talks to me about quite a bit. And he's doing a lot of very interesting and fun things. I mean, he's taking phone calls now and doing that kind of stuff. Possibly, maybe even in collaboration with him. I'm trying to figure that out. There will always be some aspect of me doing something like this, just a personal little reach out, a little Q&A session for you guys in particular. Like I said, I'm feeling it at least once a year. At least that will happen once a year. But with what I'm seeing here, with all the engagement that I'm seeing here, I mean, you guys are sending me so much to talk about. I could literally probably sit here all day and go through all the comments and have enough to speak to for a whole day. I don't know. I'm feeling pretty good about it. It's a little nerve-wracking, as you might have noticed at the start. But once it gets going, I feel really good about it. It's another way that I feel very connected to you guys, and I do appreciate that. That might be enough reason alone for me to do more of this. Scar with just another tip. Cheers. Thank you so much, Scar. Really, really appreciate that. Wife's cool coffee cups. Yes. Many of you are talking about, I don't actually have my Crime After Crime mug here. And quite honestly, I don't know if I'm going to earn the right to use it for the next episode, because I think Danielle came with a pretty good one. But yeah, it's always awesome to me that my wife has been very supportive of all these efforts, and she's a very big part of my support system around all this. She knows that on brain scratch days, sometimes they're going to throw me a little bit. Sometimes it takes me more than a couple hours. Sometimes just for the rest of that day, I could be in a little bit of a funk, but she's really good about supporting that. We kind of build our life around that. We've got our wonderful cats, which someone asked about that and I didn't even touch on it. Cats are doing great. There is Chloe. There is Shelby, who's actually a boy. A lot of people think Shelby's a girl's name, but Shelby was named after the dog on Smallville, which in Superman lore, the dog is Krypto, but his name is Shelby in Smallville. And there is Lila, the newest addition to the family, she's the smallest cat that I've had. She's full grown, but she still almost looks like a kitty just because she has such a slight stature, and she's got this little tiny face, and she's a real darling. We love the heck out of her. Are you taking calls? Not on this one, Heather Miller. I have thought about it. I do have a little mechanism in my mind. One of the lives that I did previously with a couple of filmmakers, they showed me this different video calling app where you literally could just put the link out and people could call in, and you could kind of mute it while you were talking to someone so that other calls wouldn't disrupt. So I'll probably take a look into that. Like I mentioned, I really don't love being on the phone. One of my least favorite times that I was on a radio show, it used to be the Art Bell Show, but I can't remember who's on it now. But we were talking about the case of the holistic doctors, and they opened it up to phone calls, and the topic just completely shifted. It was no longer about the actual murders and the actual details of not even murders in all cases. Some of them were natural deaths. There was all kinds of different stuff. But then the topic switched when the phone calls opened up and everyone was just are you telling me that there's nothing to, these holistic doctors being killed? And I'm like, I can just tell you what the research shows. And I've looked into 30 of these cases individually, and I've categorized them, and I've got this giant Excel spreadsheet in front of me, and I can just tell you the information that I found. And some of these, in some of those cases, there was people that were charged for specifically murdering. And it was obvious. It was like a business associate or a family member. So I don't know. Open phone calls can go very weird. I think it's a little bit different when it's on a radio show as opposed to an audience like this. I mean, you guys all know me. You all know what I think about and what I present to you guys. So it would probably go differently. I think at some point we might try it. Coast to coast, yes, thank you. Although, you know what? I don't know if it was coast to coast. I can't remember now. It was a couple years ago. I've done quite a bit of radio and podcast interviews at this point. I think I'm probably at like 13 or 14. My cat was 24 when we lost her this year. Very sorry to hear that, Lulu. We lost 2 cats over the past 2 years. It's very, very hard. I want to see John on Howard Stern. What he's doing needs to be known nationwide. Boy, that's a trip that I would probably make. I used to listen to Howard a lot when I was a kid. He's certainly changed his tone nowadays. Man, that would be a thrill. He's basically the reason for a lot of people to buy satellite radio. Let's see here. Well, I know I'm coming up on time, and I actually do have somewhere else I need to be, so I think I'm going to have to call this one. I just want to see if there's another comment or two I can get in here before I go. Restless Nomad. Let me rephrase the question. What would summarize these words, Pizzagate, in just a few sentences? Let me just say that the Pizzagate thing it's one of the most craziest videos I've done in terms of the comment spread. There's people that either totally understand what I'm talking about and they get it, and there's people that just cannot believe the information I'm presenting. And there's a bit of a problem in that for me personally, because when I look into these things, it's not based on any particular belief structure. I'm not coming from a position of wanting a story to go one way or the other. Think about the popularity of a particular video. If I would have been able to prove that stuff was true, that video would have blown up. There was entire YouTubers that were dedicating themselves specifically to that topic, just saying that stuff was true, and they were getting hundreds of thousands of views. I think my video still, it's probably like around 20 or 30,000 views or something like that. With me, it's never going to be about what's selling the video. It's never going to be about trying to cater to a particular belief. It's coming from a point of not letting your beliefs affect your vision, and looking at things from as level of a perception as you can start at. And I think we all have to acknowledge we all have biases that affect our view in some way. I work extremely hard to try to limit those as much as possible. I'm not perfect at it. I don't think anyone can come out here and say, I am the perfectly unbiased person. But I can tell you, for that particular topic, I was looking for the evidence to support that topic. I have literally experience in email research, and the emails were not in a spot where I could say, yes, there's enough logistic information here that it could support that there were secret meetings happening in these emails. And that, for me, was the point that I chose as, where does the rubber meet the road on this conspiracy theory? Because it was all about the emails. And if it wasn't in the emails, what the hell else? We're going to talk about some creepy paintings that were on the wall, or that some guy had a very bizarre sense of art for his pizza place. Yes, I get it. That's all weird. That's not proof. We're looking for the actual proof there. So the Pizzagate thing, I put in my 2 cents on it. People can take it. They can leave it. But it's one of those things that when you're touching on people's belief structures, you're going to have backlash regardless. And even outside of that, even if you're really not hitting on people's very deep and personal belief structures, sometimes they're just contrarians, and you're just going to have, people that just want to have the flip opinion. And that's okay. I really appreciate the flip opinions, particularly when they give me something else to research or something else to look into. I don't mind having my positions challenged. I think if you look at even the start of Brain Scratch, that's exactly what it was. It was me putting out, hey, here's what I found. Here's where I'm at with it. Send me more information. I got to tell you, some of the information I was sent on the Pizzagate stuff, it was not compelling, like super, super not compelling for me. And I wish it would have been. I'm telling you, in terms of YouTube views, in terms of ad revenue, would have been way more for me to push some legit conspiracy theory out of that. I just couldn't find it. Abra Singleton, do you ever have nightmares about a case? Not particularly. I think when I first started doing it, particularly with the Elisa Lam case, yeah, I did have a lot of very bizarre dreams. But that was part of the workflow that I had to figure out for myself is, I work this like a full-time job. I get up in the morning, I hit comments, I start doing research, I film, I edit, but at some point I stop work and I get to my personal life and I go spend time with my wife and I watch other things that are not crime related. So I found a way that I think I've treated myself well emotionally to be able to not have too much of that happen. It does happen occasionally. It's hard not to. These cases absolutely touch me. And I feel for the people that are involved with these cases. So it does happen on occasion. Misty Kate. Hey, Misty. Are you still involved with the Elisa documentary? Are you planning on getting a PI license? The Elisa documentary for me was literally giving them access to all of my YouTube videos, which I did, answering numerous questions through email, which I did. But in terms of me doing anything else with it, I'm not involved with the post-production. I have nothing to do with the editing. I went out to LA, I filmed a bunch of segments for them. We did some interviews. We went around the town. We went around the Cecil. We did all that. But that's the extent of my involvement with it. So, but I'm telling you, the interview is worth it. The interview we did was, I almost wish I could release it on the channel. And if they don't release the whole thing, I might ask them, maybe as, after the documentary comes out, if they'll allow me to do something with that. 'Cause it was really, really good. All right, everyone. I think that is about it. I want to thank everyone, for coming out to this. Thank you for spending some time with me today, particularly if you have the day off. And if you don't have the day off, I really appreciate you being here as well. Thank you guys so much for all the support on Crime After Crime, on the LordanArts channel. I hope you'll support some of these other collabs and other events that we have coming up. I know I'm looking forward to it. And I do thank you thank those of you that appreciate seeing some of the different sides of me, but just always remember, LordanArts, Brain Scratch, Searchlight, they're not going anywhere. They're always going to be the best that I can do to help with these particular cases. And it's not going anywhere anytime soon. I don't see any end to this road. Let's just say, I want to help more people. And as long as you guys are there to help me do that, I think we make a pretty awesome team, and I don't think it's going to end. So thank you so much, everyone. I really appreciate it. And man, I am feeling pretty good about this. I do think that we might do this again sometime very, very soon. Maybe I won't wait a whole year for the next one. So I think you guys could probably talk me into that pretty easy at this point. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Have a great day, and I will see you again very soon on the LordanArts channel.